In Article 1, we have the Congress, which is there, and I'm painting with a broad brush and we're doing it quickly, to create the laws, to draft the laws, to say this is what the law should be for X, Y, and Z. We go into, in the constitutional text, powers granted to Congress.
Right.
So it isn't unlimited. It is these specific things. And there are 18 different lines in that particular grant of power, but it's very specific. And
Right.
over the course of these 200 and so years, as Lou said, things have been a little broadened.
Welcome to the Republic Podcast, where history meets scrutiny and facts matter. Join Rob and Lou as they dive deep into the foundations of American democracy, dissect the laws that shape our lives, and challenge the narratives behind today's headlines. From forgotten chapters in the U.S. history to the legal truths they didn't teach you in school. This is your front row seat to get informed, unapologetic conversation. We have an American republic, if we can keep it. Now, let's get started. So, greetings to all our viewers out there. If you're still with us, that's outstanding. We are very happy. And cheers, my brother.
Cheers, my brother. And for all you out there, hope you bring up a chair, bring up a drink. Could be water. Doesn't make a difference.
And sit back and have some fun. Oh,
Sit back. Take some pride in our country. Regardless of your political persuasion, where you live, who you pray to, who you don't pray to, whatever.
It's all good.
Just be appreciative of the history of this country and everything that is still there. It may be covered up by a lot of chicken shit. But the foundations are still there.
Right. There may be a little crumbling, a little mold, a little dust, but it's all good. And thank you very much for everyone who's been chiming in and everything else. We love the messages, love the support, and we love the input. And keep doing it. And have to say that I've got my flag here. You know, it's showing all the services because we just had the Army's birthday.
Yes.
We just had the Coast Guard's birthday.
And the Coast Guard's birthday.
And we have the Navy birthday coming up.
Yep.
So, I just wanted to show a little bit of spirit here since, and put out my love to all my Coasties out there. Of course, I hate Coasties. It's more, I love the word Guardians, but it's, even then that sounds like, Curtis Sliwa, but anyway.
Or the Cleveland baseball team.
There you go. Warriors come out to, never mind.
It's all good.
So Lou, what are we doing today? Go ahead.
When last we were together, we were telling everybody about the Constitution. And we were talking about how the Constitution came about.
Right.
But we didn't get into the Constitution itself, which all these years later is still the foundation of our republic. And people throw around, sometimes carelessly, sometimes innocently, but incorrectly, things about, well, you're not being constitutional. This is unconstitutional. That's unconstitutional. And it
I don't think that word means what you think it means, but
exactly. Exactly. So we're here to talk about the Constitution itself. We're not going to go into every line and every word of the Constitution. I know you're shocked. Shocked.
Yeah, thank God. I was going to say shocked. Oh my goodness. Thank goodness. We'd be, we'd be losing viewers by
no. But today is to talk about the Constitution as an overview because there are 7 articles and people
lucky number 7.
People talk about, what do you mean? But our articles, they don't understand the articles from the amendments, from the preamble, from all that stuff. So we're going to do the overview and then start to talk about Article 1.
Because that's how it all starts. Article number 1. Let's start from the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
It's a very good place to start. And for everyone who has gray hair, like us, who are
Shut
in
up.
that same age, shut your mouth, in our age bracket, you might remember a little ditty from Schoolhouse Rock.
I love it.
And where it went, I am sorry that it went away. I know it's on YouTube and somewhere else, but someone's got to start playing this for these kids, because it gives such a great little foundation. You remember it because
I'm just a bill. I'm only a
and
bill.
they talk about the Constitution.
Yeah.
And everyone our age remembers the little song, which encapsulated the entire preamble. We the people, in order
In
to form
order
a
to
more
form a more
perfect
perfect
union,
union.
establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Yeah, I'm not going to bore everyone and make everyone's ears bleed with my singing, but
So I got to fucking drink again.
but if you get the chance after watching this, go Google Schoolhouse Rock Constitution.
And I think that what I'll even try to do is we'll try and add in the
Drop
link,
it in the link.
drop a link in. There you go. And
Awesome.
and that way, we're making sure not to violate any copyright standards, but also make sure that you have the access to what was really, I think, a foundation of our learning, the Constitution back in the day.
That's right. Saturday mornings.
Saturday mornings, of course, back before they had 24-hour cartoons and everything. But anyway, we're showing. Yeah.
That's it.
So what are we talking? So the Constitution, again, as Rob said, 7 articles. What do you mean 7 articles? 7 articles, but the first 3 are the ones that are really create the foundation of our country. We've talked about it a little bit, the other day, and we covered it in a big overview. And so just sort of go over the overview again. You have the article number 1. Article number 1 is the creation of the legislature.
Right.
That is where, and it delineates and defines what the legislature is and creates a bicameral.
Listen to you. Crazy.
Bicameral legislature based upon representation, but also based upon the just flat numbers, because you want to ensure there was equity.
Mm-hmm.
There's that word, equity. And then the next Article 2 is the one that we'll be covering eventually, is the powers of the executive branch and the powers of the president.
Right.
And that's going to be one we're going to probably spend a lot of time on, because that's going to be one where there's a lot of questions about what the Article 2 powers are. Where do they begin? Where do they end? My view of it is that with things like executive orders, it's gotten out of hand, but that's something that was also
Absolutely. I
created.
would agree with you.
But it was created by the legislature. So therefore, they created their own demon. Then,
as the governments often do, which is why, as an overview, before we even get to the other articles, the Constitution is not a broad sweeping, you do what you want. It's actually a restriction of the government's powers.
Right.
It tells the government what you only can do, and everything else is vested in the states.
Right. And as we said before, that it's not, that the Constitution is not, it doesn't grant us powers,
Mm-hmm.
because we, as citizens, have inherent powers. It's designed to limit the government's power over us.
Right.
And then you got Article 3, which is the judiciary. But again, that's another, holy shit, that's going to be another one. So anyway.
So, good times.
Good times.
We had the Constitution, and what they called the Constitutional Convention, 1787, because the Articles of Confederation, which we'd been limping along with since the time of the Revolution when it ended, was so poor that it didn't allow a federal government to have any strength whatsoever. There was no power to tax, there was no power to levy, there was no power to raise an army, nothing. Everything was left to the states completely. And there needed to be more of a balance. There needed to be more of a central government. But that is the crux of so many discussions and so many arguments, and really the discussions after the Constitution draft was submitted to the states for ratification, because there were the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Federalists looking for a stronger centralized government and the anti-federalists saying, no, 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 everything should stay with the states. But nothing was going well with the Articles of Confederation, and everyone knew it. I mean, so much so that I believe it was 1786, there was a rebellion, was it called the Shays Rebellion in Massachusetts?
Yep.
That almost overthrew the Commonwealth because of tax issues, and there was no federalized force, and it led into a whole bunch of different things where everyone kind of woke up and said, this can't keep going on like this. So there was a convention called in 1787, which really didn't at first have a lot of, shall we say, moxie or giving power, or people were like, yeah, so you're bringing a convention, big deal. What's the big what? When George Washington announced he would be attending, that was a big deal. Eh?
And that's what it is.
That's exactly it.
He walked in, and that's when shit happened. That's when things changed, and and it gave the Constitutional Convention authority, and it gave it legitimacy, because they were
Right.
like, that he's walking in and he's the one they were saying, we need this and we need this done. Then that was the biggest impetus for it to really get underway and be an honest, realistic convention aimed at creating the Constitution.
Right. So the Constitutional Convention goes, and it is going for months in the heat of summer in Philadelphia. And in 1787, they finally come up with the draft after months and months of debate, compromise, threats, coercion, pushing, shoving, whatever. But they came together and compromised and came up with the document, which is still the foundation of our country today. And I'm going to read for everyone, because it's etched in my mind. I can't say I read it because it's etched in my mind from Schoolhouse Rock, the preamble. So these are the Constitutional Convention writers, drafters, signatories, their announcement to the country. Very succinct, but it leads on to the glorious Article 1. It says, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Simple.
Outstanding.
But
it says it all.
It says it all, but the Articles of Confederation didn't allow for the provisions of the common defense, didn't promote a general welfare. Everything was left to the states. So this was a very significant sea change.
Right. I mean, and it's something that was needed, because with the Articles of Confederation, it was something where they had just the people, everybody had just come from a very monarchy that ruled everything very tightly, and that they wanted to have the states have their own rights. That was the whole thing, is that they wanted to have the independence. But then they saw that really there needed to be more cohesion. I mean, the best way to sort of put it in more common terms, or more recent terms, the League of Nations. League of Nations had a great idea, but it was too loosely built, and because it didn't have any real, foundation to it, it fell apart. Same thing with the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation fell apart because it didn't have a stronger federal government.
And let me be clear about this. People forget that our country, before it was a country, was just a compilation of states.
Right.
That's it. Each state was its own mini nation state. The state of Connecticut was different than the state of Georgia. The state of Maryland was different than the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, et cetera, et cetera. And they all had their own boundary. They had so many boundary disputes because they were their own independent nations, and they were trying to do their own. Some of them had their own currencies, et cetera. It was akin to, as was told to me at one time by a professor in history class, it's like having a family with 13 kids running the household. It became chaos because
Right.
there was no central parent to say, everybody shut up. I understand y'all have your own interests, but we got to do this or else it's going to be anarchy.
Right. And
And here
and
we are.
and here we are. And as a side assignment for anyone that's interested in, why don't you take a look at the differences between states, commonwealths, and the other foundations? Because there's actually the what is it? Rhode Island is uh, the Providence plantations,
I was just
and
going to say, yeah.
yeah. So just look at the way that all the states were set up, because even the states didn't have a uniform situation,
Nope.
and that even the state, like, commonwealths were set up because it was for the Commonwealth and didn't have a strong centralized government.
Right.
So anyway, I digress.
And
So
that's okay.
yeah, so so now we set up ourselves for Article 1. So what
Article
is
1 is for the legislative branch.
right? So
And
yes,
in Article 1, as Lou was talking about before, it's a bicameral approach. You have a House of Representatives, which is there for representation directly from the people and of the people and for the people, where you are supposed to have people who are elected based upon the number of people in your districts in your state. And they were going to represent more towards the common person, the citizen. And then you have the Senate. The Senate was based upon not population. It was simply about giving each state a balance. Each state only has 2 senators, regardless of how big or how small.
right,
So there's, as Lou said, there is a balance. There's an equity here. You have representation of the people, by the people, for the people, and you have senators who are there supposed to be my words, not anyone else's. They're more there to try to be cooler heads.
yeah.
Whether that actually comes about is another thing, but the idea is that they're not so uh, impassioned by the whims of the people. They're there to give a little bit of a balance.
Right. And by design, the way that the House of Representatives and the Senate were set up is that the House of Representatives, it was a 2-year term, and it was designed to have a 2-year term because you were supposed to be representing the people that are electing you, and that they
Right.
felt that, politicians like diapers should be changed often because they're normally full of the same thing. So, um,
I think I saw that in one of the sections of Article 1, but then keep going.
yeah, I know. But so it was designed to be that way so that you always had a fresh representation.
Right.
That does that actually happen in reality? No, because we have people that have been representatives for 40 some years.
And no
Um,
one was ever supposed to be making politics into a career.
right. That was the one thing. Article 1, when it was originally designed, that you were supposed to go serve your country, serve your state, and go back to what you were doing, going back to be a farmer, going back to be, a doctor, going back to whatever. It was never meant to be a firm, like, form of employment.
Right.
But that's for when we have
We're
our
going to
riff
get into
session.
that later.
Yeah, that's our riff session when we're really drinking and roll into all these different things. The Senate then um, is set up for 6-year terms,
Yeah.
and the reason why is because they wanted some continuity. They wanted to have that corporate memory so that you could have people that look in the long term in order to develop things. The senators were the ones that, for the long haul, working on things all the way along. The representatives were the ones that were dealing with the immediate issues, trying to get things done on a short basis, in a short term, in a short way.
Right.
Maybe that's a quick down and dirty of it. So,
It's just
but
been a long week.
one of the other unique things, or one of the, as before we go into talking to the powers about there's powers of legislature and everything else. One of the things that they also have is that the legislature is the one that is supposed to set up the laws. They're supposed to be the ones writing the laws,
Right.
passing the laws, and working together for the laws. And there's, and that's really what it's designed for. And there's certain restrictions against that, which as we go on, and talk about more about this that we can get into, like pass, the how we're supposed to have a balanced budget because the budget comes from the legislature, and so you have them again. Riff session later,
Yeah.
but um, they're supposed to pass a budget. They're supposed to
Mhm.
pass laws,
Yep.
and they're they're the only ones that should be imposing taxes. But that again, that's our my personal opinion is that the administrative state that we have has gotten a little bit too large for itself, and that uh, the one thing that the Article 1 also does to a certain degree is that it allows, if the legislature just they pass laws, but they were never the passing the laws, they were never supposed to be designed to be down to like the exact quote, letter, verse, everything. They were going to be the big picture, and then the government, well, the way that it ends up now is that the government and the administrative state create the regulations in the
Right.
executive branch, and that's again gotten out of control. But I digress. Anyway, go ahead.
One of the things you struck on was one of the founding core principles for this Constitution that our founding fathers came up with, which was having three branches of government with checks and balances. In Article 1, we have the Congress, which is there, and I'm painting with a broad brush and we're doing it quickly, to create the laws, to draft the laws, to say this is what the law should be for X, Y, and Z. We have the executive branch, Article 2, which is there to implement the laws, which is to carry out the laws, is to make sure the laws are, in fact, set forward and, as I said, implemented. And then you have Article 3, the judiciary, which is there to interpret the laws when there are disputes about them. So this is all interconnected. But again, it starts with Article 1 with the Congress.
Right.
And Congress, when they go through the setup of who can be a representative, you have to be a certain age and certain this, and only 2-year terms. Senators, you have to be this certain age, at least an American citizen, and blah, 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 and then have 6-year terms. But then they go into, in the constitutional text, powers granted to Congress.
Right.
So it isn't unlimited. It is these specific things. And there are 18 different lines in that particular grant of power. Power to collect, delay taxes, to promote for the common defense, to borrow money, regulate commerce with foreign nations, sign treaties, coin money, those types of things. But it's very specific. And
Right.
over the course of these 200 and so years, as Lou said, things have been a little broadened. The belt has been loosened,
Right.
and perhaps some of the some of the problems that are plaguing our country are because we have not been completely true to the words of our founding fathers and been as restrictive as we should have. Again, for another rant at another time.
I mean, and it all depends on your view of the Constitution. I mean, there's some, like, for me, being a, more of a constitutional purist, and really looking at the law, what the language says, and saying, look, this is designed to restrict us, and that we shouldn't be broadening it. But there's a lot of things. I mean, like the origination clause, Section 7, uh, saying that you know any bills for taxation have to originate within the legislature,
Right.
within the House of Representatives. It doesn't start with the president. It doesn't start with the Senate. It starts with the House of Representatives. They're the ones that are supposed to be doing this, but it's sort of gotten muddled over the years.
And this is some of Lou and I have been going through down these, starting to go down some of the rabbit holes, and we pull ourselves out, start to go down around, pull ourselves out. This is going to be some of the conversation that we wanted to get into, talking about the reasons why we're doing this to begin with, because we see our kids and other fellow citizens who have no idea about history, no idea about the founding documents, no idea about how we got here, what this is supposed to be. And they just think either we have unlimited powers to do whatever, or things are problematic and this, that, or the other thing. And you'll hear all of this stuff in the news from news media outlets, from this, that, the other. And the whole basis for us doing what we're doing is to say, hold on. Let's get back to basics. Let's start with what the documents and everything in the foundations of this country are about, how we got here, and we'll talk about how it is that we got from that point to where we are today. And
He's
then,
always going to reel me in because there's so many rabbit holes that I can go down. It's just there's so much where people really. I mean, it comes back to people really need to read the Constitution, and there's some great primers out there. In fact, we'll put some of the pros. We'll put some links into the primers and things like that, where it's you need to know what it says. It, Going
so
back to some of the language that came before, we'll well we'll read what's in the bill after we pass it.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem. It ought to have been a problem, but when you have not just a ranking member, but I believe she was at the time
the chair,
yeah, the head of the House of Representatives saying, you don't need to know what's in the bill. You can read it after you vote on it. And the fact that no one gave it any real lip, like, oh, that's a problem. Why are you saying that? Yeah. There's something to be said for being a traditionalist in adhering to the Constitution, into adhering to the body of law. And like I said, we're going to get into the rabbit holes of things, but about this stuff you hear on a daily basis in the news, and then reading in papers and reading papers like they have papers anymore. Reading online, the news feeds, the blah, blah, blah. Someone calls someone a fascist, or someone says, you're doing something that's unconstitutional. What about your due process rights? What about this? But when you ask the person who makes those broad statements and accuses someone of being a fascist or taking away someone's rights or doing this, when you ask them, so what are those rights you're talking about? And invariably they'll go, well, you just shouldn't do that, or something along those lines. Well, you got to be more specific, because in reality, the Constitution is there to limit the power of government and is very specific on what the government can do. Right? So if you're saying that you shouldn't have the power to do this, well, what's this? Show me in the Constitution where that is. And I will be the first person to defend you if we find it and say, yep, there it is. Article 1, Section so. Okay.
It's in Article 4,567 saying that you cannot be mean to me.
Something like that. With that.
Yes. That brings us to the end of today's episode.
No. So what we have here, which is very interesting to me, at least to me anyway, after the Constitution and our founding fathers wrote specifically the powers granted to Congress, you think that'd be the end of it in Article 1. Oh, no, but you'd be wrong. Because
wait, there's more.
There's more. Now, how much would you pay? No. It says they wrote down, and I quote, powers forbidden to Congress.
Right.
And they wanted to make sure it is very clear that Congress did not have free reign. They gave a good number of powers to Congress for sure. But they talked about items such as no tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state, which has been extrapolated in court judgments, whatever else. They talk about no money shall be drawn from the treasury, but for certain things. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay and impose duties in imports or exports.
Wait. So that my title of Grand Poobah Luba, that's
I hate to tell you, You might have be on some shaky ground with the validity of that title. Not to say that I don't call you that every day, but
anyway, I'm sorry.
No.
No, but
it goes to say that they were very mindful, because back in the day when they were writing this, as I said, there were Federalists and Anti-Federalists, and they were very impassioned about how much power will you give to the federal government. And they were very mindful to make sure it wasn't unlimited or unbridled. It had to be circumscribed to the certain points, and that's it.
Exactly. I mean, and that it originally was designed to be one issue, one bill, one law.
Right.
And not these omnibus bills that cover 5,000 different issues.
And people tack onto it and tack onto it and tack onto it.
Tacking on rats and other things onto the bill to just
more rabbit holes.
Sorry. Jesus Christ. Okay. So we'll cover that
Article
next.
1.
Article 1. We'll cover that next.
Article 1 is foundational, and it's foundational for so many ways. And we're going to put in the links, the Constitution. And we're going to put a couple other links that there's actually, for those people who don't want to read the entire Constitution, which really in essence is not that long.
Right.
It just isn't. 1787, they weren't about the blah, 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 blah. They were like, let's get down to business and brass tacks and write it out.
There wasn't any word processors where they could type and retype and stuff like that. It's all that quill pen.
I was going to say, for fuck's sake, they were with quill and pen, and they're like, I don't have the time nor desire to be sitting here for another 3 months writing this stuff out. Let's get right to it. And they did.
Get done.
Get shit done. So it describes Article 1, the organization of Congress, and how Congress can operate, should operate, and what it can't do. Remember, that's Article 1. And we're going to get to Article 2, and then 3. And then we're going to get to the Bill of Rights. We talked about the other articles in passing, but they're not nearly as important as the first 3. That's that checks and balances, legislative, executive, judiciary. Yep. So we're going to get into the 2 and 3, the other articles, and then the Bill of Rights.
Right.
Which
and just be ready. The riff session for this is going to be awesome. Once we get to that point, because that's going to be where we have some drinks and really discuss our thoughts on it, and maybe by that time we'll actually be able to do a live session and have people chime in on what they think. So,
absolutely.
But yes, so the most important thing to take from this: like, share, and subscribe.
Bingo. And remember, comments down in the comment section. If there are particular items of Article 1 or the Constitution itself that you have questions about, or you're saying, I'm not sure about this. How did this get to be this? They're going to be topics of our next episodes. We'll weave them in. We want to make sure that the questions you ask are actually answered.
Right.
Bingo.
Anyway. All right. So that brings us to the end of our episode. Sure. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers, my brother.
Shut up and sit down.
Thanks for listening to The Republic, If You Can Keep It podcast. Join Rob and Lou in our next episode as we continue our riveting discussions on the most important topics affecting our great republic. Drop a line for topics you want to discuss, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.